Hey guys, this is Alejandro. I'm the CEO of VATSTAR. I wanted to throw out there a video with the intent of helping you pass the P1 Checkride here at VATSTAR a little bit easier. This video, I'm not going to go over every single step, but I will show you a couple of techniques, a couple of tricks and tips that I use whenever doing some of these things. We're going to go over traffic patterns, steep turns, slow flights, stalls, clearing turns, and those things. I'm going to be doing it a little bit of different. I'm actually going to be using my full motion chair right behind me. This is something that I got from a company called DOFReality.com. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about them. I'm also going to be using my HP VR headset. So the flight will be in VR, full motion. When it comes to the equipment that I use Thrustmaster, the Boeing yoke, the Thrustmaster pedals, and the honeycomb throttle system. It is set up for a Boeing. I'm not sure if you can see that. I have it set up for Boeing 737, but it is keyed to work with the Cessna 172. So we'll take off here very soon, but I just want to give you a quick intro of what we're doing today. Everyone, welcome to Astoria Regional Airport. I'm sitting here in my Cessna 172 VATSTAR livery. Registration is November 172 Victor Sierra. In case you wonder, the airport code is Kilo Alpha Sierra Tango. Sierra Tango. Anyways, we're sitting here in Astoria. We're going to be doing a quick little flight, and I'm going to do some maneuvers that are to demonstrate some of the P1 Checkride for VATSTAR. I'm going to do a couple of things, not all of them, and just to kind of give you a couple of hints and things that I have learned along the way. I would have to say, though, I'm not a real-life pilot. I'm not an instructor of VATSTAR. So whatever I'm showing you here, it's a double-edged sword, right? I might show you some things that are correct, and then some things that are just not too correct. On average, once in a while, I do get one comment or a few comments to say that something was not too proper per se. But I think my flying techniques kind of get me from point A to point B. So I want to show them all, and I wanted to show them in style. So today I'm rocking the full motion chair, my VR goggles, and all of that stuff. First thing, let's go ahead and kind of go over the cockpit real quick. I'm not sure what kind of knowledge or experience you have, so I'll go over the instruments that I'm going to be looking at while I'm doing the flying and things like that. So this is what it's called, a six-pack right here. There's 6 instruments. These are going to be the 6 instruments that I'm going to be looking at the most, plus the RPM down here. So this is my speed right here. Speed is in knots. If you hear me say miles per hour, just know that I meant to say knots. And I'm going to be looking here. This white band right here is super important because that's our flap speed, right? So we got to be within this band right here in order to have flaps deployed. So remember that, so you can quiz me or you can test me. This is your gyro or your attitude indicator. It tells you how much of a turn you're doing. Super important. I want to make sure you know that this band right here is a 60-degree angle turn, right? So as we turning and this right here hits that line, that's 60. So that's 60, that's 30. For my steep turns, I'm going to be doing a couple of steep turns. We have to be within about 45 to 50. So I'm going to try to get it as close as to 60 as possible, kind of right there. It also tells you how much angle, how much you're climbing and how much you're descending. Although we're going to look at something else for that. We're going to look at this vertical speed indicator. This is going to be my altitude. My altimeter is already set to 29902, which is standard. Our target altitude at the beginning, as we climb for our maneuvers, is going to be 3,500 feet. So 3,500 feet as we climb. This is going to be my turn coordinator. If you hear me say a standard turn, that means this white little notch right here. So if every time I say I'm making a left standard turn, I just want you to imagine this wing hitting this little notch, or if I'm making a right turn, this wing, this little notch. My heading indicator, this is going to be my heading bug, and as a little cheat sheet already, I'm going to set this up to 320, because that's my heading indicator for the runway. So whenever we're about to take off, this heading bug, you're going to notice it's going to be on my nose. And it's going to give me a very good perspective as of where we at when we're flying out there, when we're doing the patterns, where the runway is at, and things like that. So it's a pretty good little visual on where you need to be. This little red notch right here, marking in this one, symbolize, well, this is where you're headed. This is in front of you, and this is behind you. Right, so 0 degrees or 360. This is 180 degrees. Then you have one here and then one here. Those are all 90 degrees. So 0, then you got 90, then you got 180, 270, 360. These are all 45 degrees, the little ones right here. But the ones that I'm going to be worried about the most is the 90 degrees and 180s and things like that. And I'm not going to be looking too much into this, I think, only on the climb out, whenever we know we have to make a 45-degree turn to exit the pattern, and that's the only time that I'll probably look at that. But anyway, so you know. Already talked to you about these. This is your vertical speed indicator. It tells you how fast up or down you're going. 500 feet per minute, 1,000 feet per minute, 1,500, and 2,000 up and down, right? A lot of the times you're going to see me try to reach at around 700 feet per minute on my climb out. But the most important thing to know is that my climb out speed is going to be about 75 knots. That's going to be right around here. And then again, my RPMs down here, 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. RPM matters because that's how we know, first of all, that's how we know how fast we're going, but RPM also helps you, they help you climb, descend as well. Down here we have my trim, my fuel control, tank for the tank, so the left, right, and then both. My switches. Right here we have my fuel gauge. We should have a full tank on both, and we'll confirm that. My temperature, my oil temperature and pressure, and my vacuum and my battery stuff right here. So parking brakes, we're going to go ahead and set that up. And just to give you a very fast plan of what we're going to be doing, we're going to taxi out to runway 32. We're going to exit to our left, the pattern to our left, on a 45-degree angle, 45 degrees to the left. And we're going to climb up to 3,500 feet on the way to the coast. Once we hit the coast, we're going to turn, I think it's north, and north-ish bound. And we're going to follow the coast up. When we're doing that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a clearing turn, which it will be a standard turn to the left of 90 degrees. And then a standard turn to the right of 90 degrees to get us back to where we were supposed to be at, the same heading. Clearing turn is just to make sure that there's nobody around us. But even though we're going to be flying offline and we're not going to have any other traffic, I still am going to make it because that's part of your test. After we do the clearing turns, we're going to make a steep 360 left turn. And then we're going to make a steep, or I might switch it to a standard turn or a 30-degree turn 180 to fly on our way back. On our way back, we're going to do one slow flight. Slow flight is we got to hit 45 knots and maintain 3,500. And we're going to do 1, 2, or however many stalls we need to make sure that we get it right. Very often when I'm doing a stall, you turn it into a spin. So if I'm able to do the first one comes out as a spin, we try to do the second one. If it comes out as a stall, then we call it quit. If the first one comes out as a stall, we'll try to do a second one to make sure that I get another stall, and then we're good. But if the first two are spins, we're going to keep doing them until we stall properly. Remember, spin is whenever your wing drops and then your airplane drops. Stall is whenever it's just the airplane goes nose down instead of like rolling, which is not good. Not good for your test. So, like I said, I'm flying offline. I'm not going to be doing any call outs for the traffic. And I'm also flying clear weather for the most part. I know there's some clouds up there, but I did set it to have 0 wings, and it's high enough that we're not going to cross them or any of that. So I say, let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on my battery, my alternator. I need to make sure my nav light and my beacon lights are on. I'm going to go ahead and make sure full 1/4 inch on the throttle, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on my fuel pump for 5 seconds. And also, I'm not going to be doing any checklists. I'm not going to be following checklists, sadly. It's kind of hard on this airplane and when you're using VR to have a checklist, because a lot of buttons you got to press and it just kind of gets in the way. So I'm going to be doing things out of memory, but if you do that, I can guarantee you're going to fail. You're going to fail your test. So make sure you have your checklist out, print it, handy somewhere. I know if you're using VR, you can kind of almost like hide it down here, so you can just look down and see it. But have a checklist for sure. Anyways, now that we're all done, I said we're clear to start prop. I set it to both. Look left and right. Hold it. There we go. And I'm going to keep my RPMs at 1,000. There we go. It's a little hard. There we go. That's good. I'm going to get my avionics already kind of going. My transponder going as well. I'm looking at a couple of things. I'm looking at my fuel tank. I got 28 volts of battery. My pressure and oil are rising, but temperature's already hitting the mark there, so all good in that sense. I'm waiting for my GPS to catch on to us. Even though we're not going to be using GPS on this flight, I just wanted to have it set up just for the sake of the flight. Stay like that. Anyways, I said we are good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my taxi light unintentionally. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this guy. Hopefully it doesn't hurt him too much. And what's the first thing you do when you start the plane? Brake check. So we're gonna move forward a little bit, and my brakes work. I'm sure you can already see the chair is moving, which this is, let me tell you, the first thing that it does whenever you turn on the engine, it just starts vibrating to give you that feeling that you're inside of the airplane itself. It's pretty neat, and whenever I brake, you can see how it pushes you forward and all of that. Now, I'm not sure if you can see this, but I'm using a lot of differential braking. And yeah, you can see it on that pedal. So differential braking is great whenever you have to make tighter turns. Sometimes the Cessnas don't make the best turn angles just by moving your pedals. So you can do differential braking to help you make that better turn pretty much. We're gonna taxi here to runway 32. Like I said, we have pretty much 0 wings, so I'm not worried about which runway we need to use. I'm only using 32 because I have a couple of good reference points for the pattern. Very familiar with where we're going. Obviously, I practiced this flight a couple of times already, so it's how the runway that I have been using. By the way, that's not cheating. You should always practice a lot before you go into your check ride. Practice specific maneuvers, whether you want to practice steep turns only one day, or patterns, or stalls, and all of that. So you should always go out, and whether you're flying offline, I think you should fly online. Astoria is not a very busy airport. Often what you do find is just other pilots, like VATSTAR pilots with you. So it's not that busy. But anyways, we're gonna pull off here. We're gonna come up here to the runway. I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna configure the airplane for takeoff. I'm gonna do a quick run up. Again, you will do one of those as well, but just make sure you're using your checklist, right? I'm gonna stop the airplane. There we go. So, step 1 of the run up. Step 1 is to make sure you're holding down on your brakes. Some people use parking brakes, but I like to hold down for even more pressure. Second thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna put my RPMs up to 1700. I'm gonna try to keep it almost on the spot. There we go. That's pretty good. I'm gonna look at all my gauges, make sure nothing is going crazy. My pressure and oil temperature. My oil temperature and pressure are all in the green. And now I'm gonna test my magneto. So I'm gonna switch it from both. I'm gonna go to left. And what I should see, it drops from 1700 to about 1500, 1550, whatever that is. It should only have about 100 to 150 RPM lost. So if you're losing more than 150 RPMs, then that means there's a problem on your magneto. So I'm gonna turn back to both, and we should see it rise right back up to 1700. Perfectly. Now I'm gonna go ahead and switch it to right, and we should see again the same drop or similar drop. Perfect. And then we'll put it back to both. Perfect. All right, so that's about it. All my gauges is still looking green. You can see the temperature is rising, but still in mark, so nothing to be concerned of. I'm gonna go ahead and put my RPMs back to 1000. I'm gonna go ahead and also at this point turn on my landing light, my strobe light. Pitot heat, you could have turned it on already, but there we go. I'm gonna drop 1 notch of flaps, and I'm gonna make sure my transponder is set to the ALT mode. And super important, I'm gonna go ahead and put my harness on. Now, one thing that a lot of people have not ever experienced is one of these chairs. And like me, when I first got it, I didn't know what to expect of it. So I put on the chair, I sit on it, I get on an F-18 because I wanted to have the most dramatic effect, and I almost go flying. So, learn from my mistake. If you do get one of those chairs, get you a cheap harness, a seatbelt or something, and make sure you wear it, because it's like the real deal, man. It's if you brake too hard, you go forward. If you turn too hard, then you can almost fall off the chair. It's not, of course, as dramatic as real life, but you will feel like it is. I don't know if you can see it, I don't know if you noticed, but my stop button is right here. So if I'm ever in an emergency, if I'm ever about to like really go flying, I can just drop my hand right here and hit it, and it will kill the motion of the chair. And I've had to press it once. So that's the day that I decided to go on Amazon and just get me one of those things. I think it might have been like 30-40 bucks, something like that. But it does great service. A lot of times I don't even wear it buckled. If I'm doing like a 737 flight, there's not a lot of drastic motions for anything to happen. But because we're doing a stall on this one, it will feel like I'm gonna go forward. If I spin, it's gonna throw me around. So for that and that, I'm gonna go ahead and buckle, make sure that I don't go anywhere. But anyways, I'm ready here to take off. I do have my my flaps ready. My airplane is configured for takeoff, and I'm gonna go ahead and taxi out here to runway 32. I'm gonna do this part very slowly. I've seen some people that rush into the runway, and that makes no sense. Unless ATC tells you to rush, then you can rush a little bit more. But I'm gonna take it slow because it's a critical part of the flight, and that is to make sure you do a good takeoff. So what I'm gonna be looking at is that my heading bug is, in fact, in front of me, and it's almost there. Good enough. I'm gonna go ahead and throttle up. With that, I'm gonna have to give it right rudder in order to keep the airplane center. It's trying to push me to the left. I'm gonna be looking at the speed, 55 knots. Once we get to 55 knots, then we'll go ahead and take off. And 55. There we go. I'm gonna keep runway heading, and I'm gonna try to get to my 75 knots on the speed, which should give me about 700 feet per minute. Keep the runway heading, of course. Right rudder will help you a little bit. Go. 400 feet, flaps come up. Now I'm gonna wait till about 700 feet. At 700 feet, we're gonna go ahead and exit our pattern here. So we're gonna head westbound, which will be 45-degree turn to our left. And there you go. That's my 700 feet. And that gonna set me up to a standard turn. Head west. All of that while I do my climb to 3,500 feet. Now your instructor might ask you to go to a different area of the airfield. So you may not actually go out here to the coast. That is, again, me just doing a practice. I'm gonna trim up a little bit so I can take it easy on me. That's 1,200 feet already. A beautiful area here in Oregon. I've been here once in person, and I'll tell you that is the most scenic highway route or scenic area I've ever seen in the United States. So if you ever have the chance to come check it out, do the drive. If you can fly, that's even, I would assume, even better. I drove here from Portland. Now, one thing that I will tell you that is very important that you do is that you have targets in your mind. You know, our target altitude right now is 3,500 feet. Our target heading is west. That's 2,000 feet. We just reached that. And keep those things in mind because you want to stay within a margin, right? Your instructor will tell you, or you should know, that whenever you reach that altitude, whatever that target altitude is for you, that you have 100 feet margin. So in our case, if we go past above 3,600 feet or under 3,400 feet, it's an automatic fail. So keep that in mind. Heading is the same thing. Heading has a 10-degree margin. So 10 to the left or 10 to the right. Don't go past that. Airspeed is a 10 knot margin as well. There you go. So we about to hit our coast here. I'm gonna start making a right turn what is it, back to, we're gonna hit about 320 on the heading. And that's gonna put me kind of parallel to the runway, even though it's way back there. Like I said, I like doing that, so it's just so I know where exactly it is that I am. In case you haven't noticed, that's 3,000 feet. We only have 500 feet to go. I'm trying to increase my speed because it dropped a little bit there. That's okay. That's why we do this practice runs, right? Now, the most difficult thing about this test is the fact that you have to almost like multitask. Even though multitask is not a thing, you have to be as quick as possible as scanning, right? So we're scanning altitude, scanning the vertical speed indicator, the heading bug, all of that good stuff, just to make sure that everything stays where it needs to. There we go. That's 3,500 feet. I'm gonna throttle back a little bit. I'm gonna, before I start doing any kind of turns or any of that, what I really want to do is I want to settle the airplane down. Okay, I want to be settled. I don't want to have to be making a lot of corrections and then making those maneuvers, right? So see where I'm barely putting any inputs anymore, and everything looks pretty good. I'm gonna slow down just a little bit to make this maneuvers here. I want to be at around 95 knots, and try to keep the temptation from looking out. That's what's gonna kill you in the test. Is every time that you look out, something changes. You know, your heading goes off, your speed goes off, something. All right, so anyways, we're here. We're gonna make a standard 90-degree turn to our left, and that's gonna put us at around a heading of 230, if you can see it there. And then once we're done with that, we're gonna come back here to this same heading. So here we go. All right, there's my standard turn. I'm gonna stop my climb. It was climbing a little bit for me. Speed is good. I'm gonna speed up just about a tiny bit. Remember, my heading, target heading now is 230. You know, you should look out a little bit, but that's where, again, don't look out, because that's when things changes. So that's 230. I'm gonna settle down here, and my altitude is still 3,500. My speed is going up a little bit, but that's not too bad. And I'm keeping good control of my airplane. I'll look out, make sure there's no one around us, and I'm gonna go back to my heading bug on a standard turn. See, I'm descending there, so I'm gonna correct that. But that's okay, because it put us right back into 350. And there is my heading. So we're back to where we were at. Now the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna make a left 360 steep turn. And remember, that's gonna be about 45 to 50 degrees there on my attitude indicator, which is the, I guess, the before last notch right there. So it's gonna be kind of steep. That's why we wear this thing. It's almost gonna feel for me like I'm falling off of the, off of the side of the airplane. So here we go. Left steep turn. Stop the descent. Keep the turn. There we go. Everything is very drastic now. It's okay, just keep in mind what you're doing. Keep the altitude there. I'm looking for my heading bug on my heading indicator. And it's so steep. Ugh. First time you do that on this chair, man, it feels like your heart is sinking. But anyway, so we're back in track. I'm back on my heading indicator, on my heading bug. My altitude is still showing 3,500 feet. It was a little bit of a jerky kind of thing, but remember your margins. As long as you stay within your margins, you're doing great. I'm gonna make a right 180 instead of standard turn. I'm gonna make a right 180 degree turn, but a 30-degree bank angle. And I'm gonna put the heading bug behind us. So let's go ahead and do that. And that's 30. The reason I want to make it at a 30 degrees is because if I do it a steep turn, it's going to be so quick. It's going to look, it's going to be so quick, it's going to go by like nothing. I'm going to slow down. I'm going a little bit fast there. And my friends, that is 180 degree. And still showing altitude of 3,500 feet. So very, very comfortable with that. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do on our flight back here is we're gonna do a slow flight. Slow flight requires our speed target to be a 45. We need to make sure we maintain 3,500 feet in a proper heading. So I'm gonna start slowing down. I'm gonna put my speed in the white there so I can drop set notch of flaps. This is where scanning quick really helps you out, because you're slowing down, you got to keep up with your heading, you got to keep up with your altitude. You see me here descending just about a tiny bit, and that is so I can get down to 3,500 and be as on point as possible. But there we go. So now we're 60 knots. I drop my last notch of flaps, which now I'm descending too much. So let's start a little bit of a climb there. This is the thing. Whenever you do this, the less corrections you make, the better, because you only have to worry about the maneuver. But if you're having to correct for altitude, speed, and heading, that's just too much work, right? So we're 50 knots. We have to keep it at 45 plus minus 10. So technically I'm already in my margin, but I want to drop it down even more because I'm playing with that top one there. So there we go. It's 45. I'm not stalling. I'm gonna stop using too much ailerons. I'm gonna start using more rudder. So there's no need really to be using that much ailerons. Sorry, I focus so much on this thing. But anyways, I call that a successful slow flight. I've kept it within the margin. 45 knots there. I'm climbing, so I'm gonna stop that. There we go. It's a lot of correction, and like I said, you don't want that much correction, right? Anyways, so now that we're done with our slow flight, let's go ahead and do a stall. This is a tip that I was taught by our CFI, and that is don't use elevators. That's how you spin. So in the spirit of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to not grab my elevator, and I'm just going to grab my aileron, and I'm just going to turn with my rudder. Okay, but for a stall we got to go under 40 knots, so let's go ahead and do that, keeping 3,500 feet. So we're gonna have to, there we go, and there's my stall, and that's my correction there. All right, I'm gonna go back to my heading. So that was I think that was a good stall. It didn't spin. It did kind of fell a little to the right. So we're gonna try it again. We're gonna try to make it as perfect as possible. We did go from 3,500 feet to about 3,000, almost 200 feet. I'm gonna keep it here. I'm not going to go back up or anything, but I do want to get on my heading, and I'm gonna start slowing down again, looking at my vertical speed, keeping it there at 0. And there's the stall. Throttle up, get speed, come back up. I'd say that was pretty good. Anyway, so that's what you want out of a stall, is that say you fall straight forward, not much of a bank or any of that stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and start my descent at flaps full up. I'm gonna start heading to the airport, and then we're gonna do a couple patterns from there. I see the runway lights already. Start slowing down a little bit. All right, so for my patterns, a couple things you want to do. You want to know. First of all, our pattern altitude here is 1,000 feet. Do not enter the pattern if you're not at 1,000 feet. If you think you're too high, just make as many 360s as you need to. You don't have to make them steep turn. You can make them like a standard turn. Which, by the way, all that means is if you do a standard turn 360, it's gonna take you 2 minutes to do the whole full loop. So that gives you enough time, hopefully the one, or if you need two, in order to descend down to the 1,000 feet. We're gonna enter it on the left downwind midfield on a 45-degree angle, and again at 1,000 feet, and then you're gonna be doing all the call-outs for that if you're flying online. And but yeah, so we're already at 1,700 feet. I'm gonna show you a couple of reference points on this airport that are specific to not just this airport but this runway, that are landmarks and terrain references. I would say this though, that is not the best way to do patterns. There's actual reference points on the airplane itself that, like that, it would apply to any runway, any airport, so it's a little bit better. But anytime that you're flying often at one airport, you can kind of start making out those reference points based on the landmarks and things like that. So the reason why I use landmarks more than anything is because some of the reference points on the airplane are a little behind me where I cannot turn that far back to actually see it because of my harness. So I'm going to be using those reference here in a minute, and I'm going to show you exactly what they are. There we go, 1,000 feet, and I'm entering the field already. I'm going to stop my descent, and I want to put the heading bug behind me, so that puts me right next to the runway perfectly, right? All right, so my first, this is a good reference point. My first reference point is going to be the runway numbers. When the runway numbers hit my strut, my wing strut, and that's that big old pull right there. Okay, so there we go. Now we're good on the heading. I like the speed that I'm going, good altitude, and I'm looking at my field. So when that wing strut hit the runway numbers, I'm gonna start slowing down. I'm not gonna necessarily start descending, but slowing down because I want to drop a notch of flaps, right? So keep that consistency going, and it would help you just make those better lines whenever you're doing the patterns. There we go. So I got my first notch of flaps going. Second thing I'm looking at now is for my base turn, is you see that river bank right there where it exits or whatever that is. I'm going to put my wing strut right over that. And then as soon as we hit that, we'll make my 90-degree turn to the left, making it the base turn. And money. See, the problem is whenever you look out, what happens? Something changes. My speed was a little crazy on the bottom side, so let's continue my descent. I'm waiting for my heading bug to hit my left 90. So you don't have to look out for any of that stuff, but there you go, that's 90 degrees. And if I look out, my runway is right there. I'm gonna drop straight up. Every time you look out, something changes. I'm gonna drop one more notch of flaps. I'm looking at my runway, looking at my airspeed now. And I'm gonna start making that other turn. Set my RPM to about 1700. Your speed, what you want to be at is you want to be about 75. That's your good approach speed. One more notch of flaps there. A little high, but I'm going to go ahead and correct for that. Target for where to land on the runway, it's going to be the numbers. I'm going to target the runways, but the numbers, but I'm not going to try to land on the numbers, right? You can make a lot of mistakes by doing that. And it's not so much about soft landing more than a good landing, right? So target the numbers, but then I kind of exit out. I'm at 65, that's a good speed. Throttle back, keep it coming down. There you go. I'm gonna flaps full up, and when I see that, I'm gonna go ahead and throttle back up and get out of here again. There we go. I'm waiting for 55 knots. That's it. It's nothing feels better than landing with a full motion shake, because you feel everything. You know that you hit with the left tire, with the right tire, even if you hit with the nose tire, you're gonna feel everything. And that's so cool. I've never felt that in my life. But all right, so now we're climbing again. We try to climb at around 700 feet per minute. I'm gonna keep runway heading at 700 feet, at exactly 700 feet. I would say not exactly, but you know what I mean. I am going to make my first 90-degree turn, and I'm going to show you. So that's another reference. Instead of a landmark, 700 feet is when I make my left turn, and that's coming up. And money. I'm going to make that a standard turn right there. Keep your climb, 700 feet. And we're about to hit 1,000 feet here, so we have to. There's a lot of stuff that we're gonna keep an eye on. We're gonna keep an eye out on the altitude there, 1,000. We're gonna stop the climb and stop the turn all at the same time. And quickly, I'm gonna look out because my next reference point is a parking lot. It's hard to see. There's a tower. Let me slow down. I'm going quite fast. There's a tower right there. It's really hard to see, but that is my next reference point. And money. I start making my left 90, keeping it standard rate of turn. I'm gonna put the heading bug behind me. That's gonna put me right next to the runway. Remember to keep the altitude at 1,000 feet. And I'm just trying to slow down just a little bit more. I don't want to be going too fast, because too fast makes everything more just harder, right? There you go. There's my runway there, pretty parallel to it. I'm gonna keep it there, my speed. Everything is looking great. Make the small corrections now, so you don't have to make them while you're doing a maneuver when you're doing a turn. Another thing that I was always told is never do flaps whenever you're turning, because that's just gonna make so many changes that it's gonna be really hard to. Now you gotta do a lot of more corrections, right? So, all right. So now remember my my reference point. That is the runway numbers. Whenever my strut hits the runway numbers, I start slowing down. Not necessarily descending, but slowing down so I can drop my flaps and money. So I'm gonna start slowing down. And flaps 1 notch. I'm looking at my river. Here we go. I'm gonna keep it 75 knots. I'm already starting to descend quite a bit, or a little bit. Start descending a little bit more. So I'm starting to descend a little late. And that's my river. Make my turn. See, the important thing is whenever you look out, something changed it or something is not happening, right? So that's why it's so important that whenever you're doing this, that you have a good balance of looking outside, keeping an eye in your cockpit and your instruments. And there we go. So now if I look, there's my runway. I'm gonna drop a notch of flaps, but I'm trying to get my speed settled down. Yeah, it'd be so nice if we had like cruise control like in our cars, but on airplanes. Yeah, I know we got autopilot, but it's cruise control. The speed at whatever I tell you to be. I'm gonna continue my descent, making my final turn. Alright. Got my flaps. Remember, my target again is the runway numbers. I'm not gonna try to land there. Alright, so I'm gonna keep it at 75 knots as I descend here. And then I'm gonna transition down to 65 about now. Okay. And throttle back. Oh, that was a hard one. And it even bounced too. How do I know that? Maybe it's like seeing it. I know that because it felt like a bounce. Alright, I'm gonna do one final one. Since that one, that was a hard one. I cannot end it in that. I can't end this flight on a hard landing. So let's go ahead and fix that. So again, climbing on a runway heading 700 feet per minute. I give you about 75. You can see there 80 knots on the climb out. I don't have any flaps. I don't have to worry about that. But typically at 400 feet, I'll put them up. And remember, at 700 feet. I'm going to make my my first 90-degree turn to the left. And you see me saying these things, and you see me continuing to repeat the same information, right? But the point behind that is that you want to do the same thing. You want to just talk to yourself and keep telling yourself what the plan is. So there is no confusion later as what is it you're supposed to be doing, right? I'm supposed to be making a 90-degree standard turn to my left. I'm gonna stop my climb here at 1,000 feet, right? And then soon I'm gonna stop my turn and throttle back because my speed is probably going up pretty crazy. I'm gonna look out for that parking lot, that tower. I still have a little bit. I'm gonna slow down, I'm going a little fast. And keep going, looking out and in, a good ratio of keeping an eye out and an eye in your instruments. But now I'm gonna go ahead and make my downwind turn, putting my heading bug behind us. and make sure you stay all within the margins. There we go. And again, if I look out, which I will in a second, so I'll make sure my speed is not going anywhere. Here's my runway. It's looking great. I'm gonna go ahead and correct for my heading there. Here I see all red. 1,000 feet. Speed is creeping up a little bit, nothing too bad. And I'm using trim as much as I need to I don't have to do a lot of inputs on the elevators. Alright, so that's my cue right there. Strut hit the runway numbers. I'm gonna start slowing down. There we go. Fast. Notch your flaps there. Looking for my river. Still got a little way to go. I'm gonna start my descent too. Great. And what do we say when we hit the mark? Say money. Standard left. 90-degree turn. I'll put us on our base for final. Keep that descent going. Put me right over the river. And perfect. I'm gonna drop another notch of flaps. I know my runway is coming up. And you know, in some sense, this is a tight pattern right here. Could extend it just a little bit more. You know, there's 2 river exits. Maybe go for the second one if you feel more comfortable with that. Absolutely, you should. But I like the tighter ones. I don't like to waste too much time. But I've also practiced a lot more than some of you. So take the easier route if you can. There you go. Speed is 70. I'm going to creep back up to about 75. I'll say that this has probably been the smoothest pattern out of the 3 I have done so far. Drop one more notch of flaps. And this is going to be a full stop. A full stop, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I land. I'm not going to play around with landing smooth. But I'm not going to apply any brake at first. I'm going to let the airplane come to slow down on its own. That shouldn't be much of an issue. Unless I need to brake because I land late. Which is already kind of appearing like that. There we go. I like to keep my elevator up so it helps me with the braking. But as I start seeing the taxiway marking, I will apply a little bit of brake. You don't want to stop on the runway, but you don't want to exit too fast. Remember, this is your plane. You're in control of it. And I say that is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and flaps up. I'm going to turn off my landing light and my strobe light. I'm going to set my transponder back to standby. One more. That was test. And as we taxi back here to the ramp, I just want to go ahead and thank you all for joining me in this flight. You know, as I partake in this whole setup. If you have the chance to get one of these things, I think you should. I do anything to make my flight simulator experience more realistic. And with my VR headset and this thing, I think it's been great. I normally fly more 737 than anything, and it is a pretty cool experience to be able to do that for sure. Remember what I told you at the beginning? Take this with a double-edged sword. There's some things that I said that I did that were correct. There's some things that I did that were incorrect. I can tell you one of them is the reference points. I know a lot of people would arguably say that. Hold on, let me fix this real quick. There we go. Some people will say that you shouldn't use landmarks, mainly because it only applies to the one airport, the one runway. And that is true. Yeah, so that is true. You want to make sure you use landmarks in the or reference points here in the airplane, because then you can apply it to any airport you go to. But also, with that said, I do it because I fly a lot here in Astoria when I'm doing pattern, so I have memorized some of those things. But if you're gonna practice, don't practice only on runway 32. Practice doing patterns on the different runways. Now, if you think about it, I think there's 2 sets of runways here, right? If you try to memorize reference points based on landmarks, that is what 2, 4, 6, 8 different reference points that you have to memorize. So don't do that. Or do that and fly around and just practice so much that you get it. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get off this cockpit. We're gonna look at the Volanta, right, version of how we did, and a couple final topics. Thank you. All right, so we are off the plane, and I kind of wanted to show you a couple of things here and talk about what we did, but now not from a flying point of view, but reviewing the flight, right? So we already know we came here to runway 32. We took off. We climbed to about 700 feet, and then we started heading. We went on a 45-degree turn, exit out. Kind of got to the coast as we climbed to 3,500 feet. That's probably around here somewhere. We made our clearing turn, kind of like an S turn, right? Made our clearing turns. You see how that looks pretty good. This line right here is pretty parallel to this line, so that's pretty good, right? That's the use of the heading bug to our advantage. If I look at the runway, this line, this line, this line, they should all be pretty parallel. So I made my steep turn. It's so hard to actually, I guess, show it here. It's so tight, right? And then came out again, pretty straight right here. So that's a pretty good exit. Then I made a 30-degree turn back, put the heading bug behind us, and now you see we're again pretty straight, solid turns. Around here, this is when I started doing my stalls. You can see my first and my second stalls are right here. My slow flying was somewhere here, and you can see there's not much of a variation when it comes to altitude. You can see this stall was a little bit more drastic than the second one. This is the one that the wing did a drop, but it recovered smooth-ish. So, but the second one was great. I tried the whole thing of grabbing the yoke in the center. I wouldn't do that again. I didn't do it on the second one, because then you lose control of your plane. So just keep in mind, don't use the ailerons, just your rudder if you need to make corrections. And perfect drop. All right, so then I went back and started flying back to the airport, and this is where consistency pays off greatly. Right, you can see my first pattern right here into the downwind. It was a little bit closer to the runway that I normally do. Also, technically, I'd entered in the downwind, not in the midfield. Midfield would have been entering somewhere around here-ish, okay? But it's okay. So came out here. Now this is where it kind of gets kind of cool, right? You can see where now all my final turns start to line up. All my my upwind, right? They all start to line up. This is all 700 feet turns right here, right? One was later than the other two, but pretty much there. And then my downwind turns right here. My base turns right here. I kept saying a parking lot, and I'll put a picture of it, but I think it's this thing right here. What I was looking on the reference, my landmark reference I was using for that. And then my second one was this river exit thing right here. Now, like I said, if you want to maybe extend it, maybe use this one, and the simulator looks a little bit further back, not that close. But anyways, just maybe use something where you can kind of fly out a little bit out more. Gives you more time to make corrections, whether you're too high, too low, too fast, or whatever. Gives you a little bit more time. If you see my final, and this right here is just, this final is so much shorter. So, but yeah, anyways, I think that when it comes to landing, they were all pretty much kind of close to each other. I say this is probably a little bit better landing when it comes to location. I can't think whether it's the first, second, or third. I don't even think it says, but just remember this. You see how the feet per minute is 280, 145, then 93. I don't believe in soft landings. I believe in good landings. Now, yeah, there's some of them that a bounce. That's not a good landing neither, but just remember that. Just try to have a good middle point between good and soft. Now, this runway, one good thing about it is it's pretty big for a Cessna 172. It gives you the advantage of you being able to land late and soft and still be able to do your go around if you want to, or even exit right here on the taxiway. So anyways, again, thank you for joining me, and I'll give you a final little talk and then call it a day. Thank you, guys. All right, so we're back on the ground. I would say that was a pretty successful little flight. The turns were, I'd say, pretty on point. There's a lot of room for improvement, and that's always going to be a thing. But the point is that you keep practicing. I mean, just for me to make this video, I did about 3 practice flights all throughout, and I wanted to make sure that I'm not too far off on what I'm supposed to be showing you. With that said, I always tell people I'm not an instructor, I'm not a real life pilot. So a lot of these techniques is just things that I use to keep me looking a little bit more, I guess, professional. If you guys like the chair, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the chair. The company is called DOFReality.com. Well, that's their website. And I can tell you that they are a pretty affordable motion simulator. One thing I like about them, this is probably the thing that I like the most about them, is the fact that one, they're very responsive. Whenever you email them, whenever you're trying to get with them, they're very responsive and helpful, very quick. I like that you can upgrade their system as you go. You don't have to get the most expensive one that does all the crazy things, but you can start with a 2-axis motion simulator, kind of like the one that I have. And then later on, you can add yaw, you can add whatever you want. So it's a very upgradable system. They have been, I think, on the market for now about 6 years. They do these chairs, they put these chairs together in Europe. They do ship to United States, where I am in Central Florida. And it is great for, pretty much I use it for all sorts of flying. I do it on, my main type of flying is on a 737. And with this thing is like you are flying an actual jet. You know, you take off, you feel the push to the back. You feel
all the turns, all the feedback, and all of that, all the bumps. You feel them. Recording it is one thing. Being in it, especially with the VR, being in it is a whole different monster. You saw me wear the seatbelt. And you have to. You really have to in some flights, especially if you're doing stalls and things like that, because it's like you hitting a brake, you know, and like if in your car you're not wearing a seatbelt and you slam on your brakes, you're gonna go flying forward. That's the whole point behind those seatbelts. I bought them. I set it up because I have to. You have to have something. But yeah, there is a promotion going on. Reach out to them, and they did allow us to give you, anyone who's willing to get one of these things, 5% offer. It is limited and it's only to a certain amount of people. So if you are interested, I will say that go get it. Use a 5% discount. If you want me to show you mine, go ahead and get on Discord and send me a private message, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you a little bit more about it, and show you a little bit more. But I do intend to make a couple of more videos using the same setup, VR, and the motion and all of that. I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing things that are a little bit different. So this was a basic, you know, your patterns and things like that, and VFR. I want to move on to IFR. I want to move on to doing commercial stuff. So like on the 737, doing flights like that, using the motion, and doing explaining specific things. Maybe doing an ILS landing, things like that. So if you want to see more of these videos, just continue to follow us. Stay with us in Discord. Check out DOFReality.com. And I want to point something out. I did notice that on the video, the head is very shaky. The video is very shaky. That doesn't reflect in the simulator itself. It's pretty, when I'm wearing it, it's pretty solid. It's not like shaky the whole time. But if anyone here knows how to, improve that, don't hesitate to send it to me, because I know it looks a little bit different when I see the video than when I'm actually looking at it through my own eyes. It's not shaky at all. It's pretty neat. So do let me know if you have a way of fixing that, and if anything you would have improved. This is something I do always take feedback. If you feel like I need to improve something specific, and you know how to, you have a trick of your own on how to improve it, send it my way. I'm always looking to improve. This is a hobby to me. I've done it for well over, 15, 20 years, something like that. So this is something that is not going away from me. So if you have something, if you know of a way that I can improve my flying in any way, if you saw the steep turns if we're a little off and you know of a trick, send that my way, because I would love to improve and also show you guys the better version of it. So again, thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, just always, how to find me in Discord. See you.